Hey everyone, Chris here with Zone Zero California, and for this video we are near the Chinatown neighborhood of Los Angeles, a little bit north of downtown. And believe it or not, this is in a very high fire hazard severity zone. Of course, we're going around making videos in as many of these very high fire hazard severity zones as we can to take you, the viewer, on the ground to show you just exactly where these places are. Now, when you hear the term wildland urban interface, you might think like, oh, that's the edge of town somewhere where the forest ends and civilization begins. And while technically that's true, these areas with all this urban development in Los Angeles over the last 125 years, possibly longer, right? Nevertheless, you have very high density populations in what CAL FIRE has now designated very high fire hazard severity zones. So what does that mean? Well, of course, we're doing this to raise awareness about Zone Zero, the Zone Zero regulations, getting ready to be published here in California. And, those are going to affect people in very high fire hazard severity zones. So how does it work? Well, any new building construction will need to comply with Zone Zero building requirements, which is essentially Class A non-combustible material. But for existing homes and structures, which is millions of people, right? Nevertheless, they're going to have to comply with these new building regulations. Now, what we expect is that the state will issue some broad general guidelines, and then you'll see more specific guidelines and regulations being issued at the county and then the city levels, mainly because there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, or at least that's what proponents have been fighting for, right? So, while defensible space, 100 feet of defensible space might be doable or understandable in a rural county where, you have 100 feet, around your home or property, obviously in more densely populated areas, that doesn't even exist, right? You might be sharing a fence with your neighbor less than 10 feet away. And so obviously that means the Zone Zero rules are going to apply to you there. So for existing homes and structures, again, that's millions of people in these very high fire hazard severity zones, what do you need to be aware of? Okay, so what's going to most likely be required of you is to take a look around your property, specifically the 0 to 5 feet around your home or structure, and identify combustible materials. So that's going to be everything from like firewood being stored or dry leaves accumulating from a nearby tree to the landscaping itself. If that tree is within 5 feet of your home or structure, it's very possible you may find yourself having to remove that. Now, that's been probably one of the biggest sources of contention among people and communities during this regulatory process, especially in places where you have urban development and high heat, like here in Los Angeles, because according to some studies I've seen, these trees provide shade that can lower the temperature like an effective 50 degrees. And so that's less power consumption required to cool your home. If you get rid of that, what are people supposed to do, right? And it's not as if places like Los Angeles don't face heat waves already. So we're probably going to see some specific local and county level rules and regulations regarding that. And, I'll just also mention too that the insurance companies themselves have been the de facto regulating or enforcement mechanism thus far, right? Countless people have had horror stories about not being able to get their insurance renewed, or they purchase a new home and they're not able to get insurance for that new home. So again, if you've had any experiences like this, feel free to join us in the comments section, share your stories there, or I also have a school community, the link is in the description. I've also been able to compile and centralize resources in the school community. So, it's kind of a one-stop shop as far as like getting a news timeline and links to grants and other resources, state agencies, etc. So you can join the community there, it's absolutely free. And then I did start a Reddit recently to see if there's any conversations to be had on that platform. Again, we're just trying to raise awareness here because we want people to be prepared and not scared, all right? So aside from your landscaping, what else do we need to consider? For sure, we need to consider your old wood fences and, yes, your decks, but your fences and your gates. Because countless neighborhoods, I mean, you can go back and watch many of the other videos we've done so far. All we do is drive a couple of blocks into the neighborhood and we see old wood fence, old gate touching the house or the garage, right? So it's so prevalent and people don't think twice about it. Well, now if you live in a very high fire hazard severity zone, you will have to think twice about it. In fact, it's going to be something you need to address. Now, the way the rules are, it looks like you're going to have 2 to 3 years to address these things. So we want to raise awareness now so people are prepared and not scared when the time comes. Of course, the sooner you move, the more protected you're going to be when that next, high wind fire season does come upon us. Sorry, hold on one sec. So, okay, so I mentioned decks as well, right? Obviously, if your deck is made of redwood or cedar, same with your fences and your gates, that's going to be something that you're going to need to replace. Now, what can you replace it with? There are some hardwoods that have already been approved by CAL FIRE, like Kayu Batu. I've seen the report on that. CAL FIRE has approved that for building use inside of Zone 0. So it's not getting away from wood entirely. It's just becoming aware of which woods are and aren't approved. Okay, so again, now with your railings, like we've driven by apartment buildings that have wood railings, right? This was in Hollywood. And so those wood railings are going to need to be replaced with a different type of wood or a different material altogether, obviously like a metal, maybe aluminum. Some of your composite materials might also qualify, like your Trex or your TimberTech. Okay, and then next would be your siding. Now, siding is a major undertaking, and there are grants available if you are looking for financial assistance. Again, you might be able to find links to those in the dozens of links I've already added to our school community, so I invite you to join us over there. But nevertheless, siding is going to be one major source of contention for many homes, especially if you have an older home, homes built during certain time periods have wood siding, Craftsman's, for example, right? And it looks like other homes that have a certain style, maybe from like the 70s or 80s, those two look like they have wood siding still. So your siding is something, again, you're going to need to be aware of and conscious about replacing upcoming in the next couple of years if you do live in a very high fire hazard severity zone. And of course, lastly, there's your roofing. I'm sure most roofing materials at this point in time are already non-combustible. I'm not an expert in roofing, but I did just partner up with another general contractor here in Los Angeles this past week. So I'm learning more about roofing, and I'm excited to share that with you, but nevertheless, it's something to be aware of. And again, like I mentioned in my example on other videos, if the reason these fires spread is because it's not a wall of flames, it's not even the radiant heat, it's the embers that pick up into the air and travel for sometimes miles and land on other properties. So if you have a collection of dry leaves or pine needles on your roof and the embers from the next firestorm land, that's going to catch fire. And if there's a high wind season, that fire is going to catch and grow very quickly. So that's the basics of the research that's been demonstrated and what's informed of this Zone 0 approach. So it's a whole system of landscaping, fences, gates, decking, siding, and roofing. So that's it. Listen, normally I would take a drive around these neighborhoods and just point out like all of the examples of where Zone 0 is going to affect people. But there's an event going on, as you can see behind me. The street's shut down. Listen, Dodger Stadium is in the middle of this very high fire hazard severity zone. This area of Chinatown kind of represents the edge. In fact, let me kind of look at it on the map here. So we are Spring Street. Okay, so Spring Street is where, as you kind of go northeast here, it represents sort of the edge of where the high hazard transitions to very high hazard. So very high hazard is the most dangerous, represented in red, high being orange, and then medium, I believe, is in yellow. So I don't know if you can see that here on the map here. So just to kind of give you a better idea of where this maps out here. So where we are, where Spring Street kind of goes northeast, and then up into the hills, that's definitely all in the red. Okay, as far as to the south and it bends around to the northwest. It's on the very edge here. So if you are off of Alpine Street, you are in the orange, and if you're on College Street, essentially you're in the red. Okay, so that's it for this video, guys. Once again, my name's Chris. I'm with Zone Zero California. If you go to zonezerocalifornia.com, reach out to us there, give us a call, fill out the form on our website, and we can connect you with local contractors in your area. Thanks. Hey everyone, it's Chris. So I'm in the truck now. I'm going to take a drive around and just kind of go along the edge here according to this map to show you where this fire hazard zone sort of like the edge of it. Okay, so we're gonna go up Spring Street, and basically everything over my shoulder to the left on my driver's side here is going to be in the very high fire hazard severity zone up until we get to San Fernando Road. So we're just going to take a quick drive to demonstrate what that looks like after we let these kids across the street. It looks like they're walking in front of me, but it's fine. Okay, there we go. So yeah, there was some kind of marathon or something, possibly even around Dodger Stadium, because I wanted to go up to Dodger Stadium. Oh, there's the seatbelt thing. I always forget my seatbelt. Not this time. Okay, let's fit the seatbelt. Excuse me. Okay, so everything through my driver's side window you'll see over my shoulder is all fire hazard severity zone. Okay, so you've got your, you know, we've got the metro rail here, right? And what else do we got here? Let me see. Let me just kind of drive like this. Oh, so everything you're seeing out of my window, again, I'm on Spring Street, Los Angeles Historic Park. This is definitely in the red zone, and you can see there are hills behind it, and I think Dodger Stadium is up beyond one of those hills. Yeah, I can see the lights back there. So that would be Elysian Heights, Elysian Park. We just did a video there. So not too many homes in this particular area, just a few neighborhoods there back on the hills, but nevertheless, I mean, everything in this area is all in the red zone. Everything you see here, all in the red zone. Okay, and now the street I'm on, if I just show you the other side of the street, this is all in the orange zone. So this is really where it transitions from orange to red, meaning it goes from high to very high. So even then, all of these other buildings and blocks to my right here on this side of Spring are still in a fire hazard severity zone. It's just not the very high fire hazard severity zone. It's simply just high. So yeah, okay, so here's, you know, we can see here some, well, perhaps you could have seen some buildings and structures back there. I think that's the 110 freeway back there. I'm not too sure. I think it might be, or just an older bridge. We're gonna go over another historic bridge here, and I want to say this is going to take us over like the 5 freeway or the Los Angeles River. This is the bridge I'm talking about. You can tell it's an older style with the lamps and stuff. And then beneath it, yeah, it looks like the Los Angeles River and some train tracks here. And then there's another bridge over there. But you can see it's really like, now from here you can see how it's the hills, right? All of the area that's up on the hill is essentially your fire hazard severity zone. So it does have a lot to do with the elevation. All right, so if you're in these neighborhoods, again, just go to CAL FIRE and look for the map. We'll have links in the school community for sure, or you can just Google it yourself, whatever. You will notice that these fire hazard severity zones map onto changes in elevation. So essentially, if you're on a lower level, flatter part of LA, you're safe. But if you are up on some kind of hill, chances are you're going to be in a severity zone. So I'm gonna leave it there. We're gonna go to the next neighborhood, make our next video, guys. But yeah, if you're in Chinatown, you're in a very high fire hazard severity zone. So just we want people prepared and not scared. And of course, if you need a local contractor, reach out to us at zonezerocalifornia.com. Thank you.